Ooh. Hello, everybody. Oh, okay. Hello, everybody. Greetings. Oh my gosh, what a week. Oh man, my feet are hurting so bad. So last week we had a friend's wedding, and then now we were doing like Mother's Day, and we had to take stuff out to the cemetery. And this morning, when I went over to the flower shop, there were boxes upon boxes of flowers that needed cut. And I was like, oh my, I should have came in earlier if I would have known this. And then there were hanging baskets that were outside behind, and I put them on this cart that Candy got, and I wheeled them all the way to the front, and I watered most of them like yesterday, and of course I picked out the one that I wanted really bad to buy, and so I've been on my feet all day, and I'm like really, really tired. And then I just got done cleaning church, which since we finished early, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and start reading right now. So, yeah, so, and I'm still working on the second book in The Keeper of Soul. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Oh, man, I'm so tired. The Sword of Realm series. Yes. Okay. So, I'm gonna just jump ahead because I am so afraid that the internet is, like, going to mess up, like, yes, Wednesday. Okay, so, last time I read chapter 1, I read the prologue, and then I read chapter 1. So, the prologue was a dream that Olivia had, and then chapter 1 was when Olivia found her grandpa dead in the middle of the living room, and she called 911, and the ambulance came, and then the sheriff came and took her home, and so now this is chapter 2. 6 pages, I think. No, it's actually 3 pages, but actually it's 5. So, okay. I better take a long drink before I start. Okay. So if you guys want to comment while I read, that is totally fine. Okay. So chapter 2 of The Wish. The morning sun peeked past the curtains. Olivia squeezed her eyes shut, rolled on her side, and stared at the clock. Different colored fluffy pillows surrounded her. Grandpa had helped pick them out for her room years ago. She sat up in bed and paused for a brief moment, realizing life wouldn't be the same anymore. She squeezed her eyes tight before any tears broke through. Her bedroom door opened. Olivia, someone is here to see you. The blankets were pulled back. It was Fern. Olivia sat up and threw her arms around her. Fern held her arms around Olivia. It's my fault, Fern. No, it's not. I should have gone earlier to see him. Then he might still be alive. Don't blame yourself. They looked at each other. This is not your fault. We didn't see it coming. Olivia covered her face with both hands and rubbed her eyes. Did you just get here? Yeah, Mom called me. Trying to book a flight right away was a pain. Olivia chuckled. How long are you staying? I have to go back as soon as the funeral is over. That's not fair. Life's not fair. After everybody ate breakfast, Olivia, her mom, and sister went to the funeral home to make funeral arrangements. Olivia stayed out in the car. She didn't want to go in. She would have to see Grandpa in there anyways. For the next couple of hours, Olivia, her mom, and Fern were making posters and gluing pictures on it. Each picture brought back memories. She could hear the laughter and the sound of water. Then the paint brushes were dipped in. The bright clumps of paint drew more attention. Fern's voice encouraged her. She set the pictures down and placed a hand to the side of her head, then let a breath out. Fern and her mom looked at each other, then back at Olivia. I'm going to miss going fishing with him. I'm going to miss fixing things around the house. Fern didn't say a word. Olivia knew she had nothing to do. Since she left for college and became a model, she hadn't seen much of him. Okay. The doorbell rang. Olivia got up and opened the door. Loretta and Skeeter were standing there with their parents. Skeeter's dad, Mike, Olivia's mom's younger brother, and his wife, Stacy. Olivia noticed that Loretta's hair wasn't blonde anymore or wavy. It was brunette with blonde highlights. She shook her head. I knew you were going to change your hair. Loretta and Olivia's choice of style were similar, but Olivia really wasn't into the high fashion and glamour like Loretta. If they were seen on the street, people would think they were different from each other. But the close bond they share was no different. When she saw Skeeter, his hair looked the same color with brunette and a little bit of blonde mixed in it, spiked on top. Crystal blue eyes and a lean body. Olivia hugged them both. I love you two so much. We love you too, cuz, Loretta said. Distraught with the loss of Grandpa, she still had the rest of the family and especially the cousins. But without Grandpa, it just didn't feel like a complete family anymore. The next day, Olivia's mom parked the car in the church's parking lot and turned the key. The motor died down and everybody got out. A part of Olivia didn't want to go in, but the others did, to say goodbye. Across the lot, other family members showed up in their cars. Her aunts, uncles, and cousins she hadn't seen in a while. Olivia drew a deep breath in and let it out, then tipped her head down. Her mom patted Olivia on the shoulder. Fern stayed on the other side. Come on, you can do it. If I can, you can. Olivia had no choice, so she walked up the stone steps and entered through the wooden doors. To her left was a room with big, wide, swinging wooden doors. As Olivia's mom and Fern talked with family members, Olivia walked towards the sliding doors. A gap was big enough to take a peek. A darkness filled the room. A strip of light peered in where she stood. It shined off the top of the smooth wooden casket. It was closed for now. Grandpa always wanted a wooden casket. He told her that years ago, but she never liked to talk about it. Death and funeral homes wasn't her favorite subject. Flowers sat beside the casket along with a picture of Grandpa and the words, in loving memory of Quinn Henry McGalla. It sat to the side along with plants and flowers in big and small pots and vases. It became real to her for the first time. Seeing in a black dress and shiny shoes, stopped in front of her. Can I help you? All Olivia could do was shake her head. Oh, I see. You are the granddaughter that Quinn was close with. Olivia nodded, but no words came out. I'm so sorry for your loss. The lady walked past Olivia. The family moved in the room where Olivia was standing. Sad music filled the room and a fruity smell scented the air. Olivia, her mom, and sister sat in the front row, along with Olivia's mom and her brother and sister. Loretta sat with her mom, as did Skeeter. Whoops. Sorry. Okay. The funeral director entered the room and opened the casket. Olivia caught a small glimpse of Grandpa's face and nose. Tears burst from her eyes and traced down her cheeks. She covered her mouth and lowered her head. Her mom wrapped both arms around her, as Fern did too. Family members got up to see Grandpa one last time, to say their goodbyes. They left a rose or even gave him a kiss on the head or the hand. A woman walked over to Olivia with a red rose in her hand. It was Gina, the librarian. She smiled softly and handed the rose to Olivia. She smiled back and said, "Thank you, Gina." "You're welcome." Both girls hugged, then separated. It was nice of Gina to come to the funeral. Olivia looked at her mom and shook her head. Her mom nodded, then handed her a rose and took the one that Gina had given her. "Go." Olivia stood up and walked the center of the steps leading to the casket. She held the rose in her hand. Each second seemed to take over. The closer she got, the harder it felt to breathe, like the air was sucked right out of her. Should she see him in the casket or walk away? Or behave like a 17-year-old? Before she knew it, the open casket was right there. She never pictured Grandpa laying in a casket, let alone seeing it in real life. Standing next to it, she saw that Grandpa's skin looked pale and his hair whiter than usual. That person laying there wasn't him anymore. Just a body, a lifeless, cold, lonely body in a wooden box. The only thing that seemed like it was Grandpa was his shirt and jeans he wore all the time. Her grip came loose from the rose and it dropped to the floor. Whispers filled the entire room from behind her. Olivia took a step back, away from the casket, and turned around and ran down the aisle. Her mom stood up and reached out towards her arm. "Olivia, wait!" Family members stood and talked back and forth. My throat's getting dry. Olivia ran out of the room. Before she reached the doors, a pair of arms wrapped around her. Tears spilled out of her eyes and down her cheeks. She dropped to her knees and sobbed. "Shh, it's okay," Fern whispered, then moved her hair from her face. "You don't have to run." A memory played in her head of Olivia and her grandpa making cookies in the kitchen. In her mind, pots and pans clinked together, water ran from the faucet, flour on the floor and table. That was just last week, when they were baking. But now she wouldn't be at Grandpa's making cookies with him anymore. Once the memory faded, she tipped her head down and covered her eyes. After the funeral, the family and the preacher arrived at the cemetery. The black hearse parked on the side of the path where cars drive through. Olivia leaned to the window. There were many different headstones. Some were brand new, some old and tipped over, some were even laying flat on the ground. Olivia, her mom, and Fern followed the family where Grandpa would be buried. Olivia never thought to see Grandpa in the ground, in a deep, dark, lonely hole, a place he should not be. As the preacher spoke about Grandpa and the life he had lived, Olivia relived some of her own memories. Flashbacks trailed through her mind, one after another. Her and Grandpa fishing together at the lake and catching fish. The splashing of the water played in the back of her mind, hers and Grandpa's voices laughing and having a good time together. Watching him build birdhouses in the shed behind the house, the sound of the saw cutting through wood and her laughter echoed through her mind. Cooking together in the kitchen from a young age through her teenage years. Grandpa reading a bedtime story before bed when she was little. It felt good to revisit those memories. Loretta touched her back and leaned her head against Olivia's shoulder. Tears released from her eyes and trailed down her cheeks. When the preacher had finished speaking, the casket began to lower into the ground. After saying their last goodbyes, family and friends left, but not everyone did. One person stayed behind to have her last moment, Olivia. She gazed down at the flowers scattered across the top of this casket. The sun peeked out from behind the drifting clouds to change the mood. A fresh scent remained in the air as a cold breeze coasted by her skin. Okay, 24 minutes. Olivia stood by the edge of the hole and pulled a picture out of her pocket. It was her and Grandpa painting in the kitchen. There would be no more pictures with him, no more fishing together, no more ice cream for the hot days in the summer, no more birdhouses being built in the shed. Her eyes buried with tears and her throat swelled. She stared at the picture one last time, then held it over the hole and let it go. It floated down and rested on top of the casket next to some red roses, Grandpa's favorite flower. I love you, Grandpa. Off in the distance, something small and white. Ooh, I love this part. Off in the distance, something small and white fluttered. A single white feather drifted across the fresh-cut green grass. A gush of wind blew it over the edge of the hole. It floated down and landed on top of the casket, right next to the picture she had dropped. Olivia's mom and Fern waited by the car. She released a breath and walked past other headstones and stopped beside her mom and sister. Before leaving, Olivia looked over her shoulder at Grandpa's headstone. The feather thing was odd, and something about it felt she didn't know. So she shook the feeling away. That's it. 26 minutes of reading. Okay, so this chapter is kind of close to home. So in my real life, I see feathers a lot, so I know that's a sign from my dad. And of course, like, I volunteer at a flower shop, so I'm surrounded by flowers, and I've seen plenty of people in a casket. That doesn't really scare me. And so when I wrote this part, I was trying really hard to try to figure out, what elements to add to it. Even though I wanted to add the whole funeral thing, I needed to add, like, Olivia's emotion and her sadness and stuff. So that's what I did. And like I said, the feather thing, I really wanted to, like, add that, which I did. So throughout the book, she'll have, like, feathers appear and stuff, and that's, like, a sign from her dad. And then, Gina, when I was reading it, she's the librarian, and something shocking about her, which I don't want to say yet, and, she is one of the main characters that will have, like, her own point of view, which I'm really excited about because I just had, like, so much fun writing her backstory, working on her character, and sometimes people say, who was your favorite character to write? And I always say, well, at first it was Olivia. And then when I was, like, halfway through writing the book, I just knew I needed to add another character in. So I added Gina, and she was actually brought in later on because I knew her mom and dad did support her, but they don't really believe in, they always believe for an explanation. And so when I added Gina in, I knew Gina would like totally understand what she was like going through. So I had so much fun writing Gina's character, and I actually got so into it that I forgot the point of the story. So that is chapter 2, and then this upcoming Tuesday, 3, I think it's, oh, never mind, that's so this Tuesday, which I don't even know what day that is. Oh, I have a calendar right here. So next Tuesday, the 5th, May 5th. Okay. So May 5th, I am doing a live coffee chat, and we'll talk, and I'll do like a recap of my the Wish reading chapters, and we'll talk about that. And I'm still giving away my the Wish books with the old cover on it. It's not this one, but they're over there. So anyways, what are you doing, Batman? Hi. Oh, Batman. How are ya? Batman. You guys want to see Batman? Maybe you guys want to see him. I don't know. There he is. Hi, Batman. Batman. Hi. Hi, handsome. And he's laying on my stuff. Oh, boy. Oh. Every time, like, seriously, like, every time I get in front of the camera and I'm talking, he doesn't like it because I'm not paying attention to him. So, yeah, it is what it is, I guess. Okay, so if my feet did not hurt, I would talk longer, but I'm so afraid the internet is, like, gonna mess up, so I'm just gonna, like, leave it here. If you miss this, it'll still be live, you'll still be able to watch it, and you can still leave a message, like, you can comment down, say what your favorite part was about the chapter, your characters or whatever. So anyways, so thank you all so much for watching this, and I'll see you all this Tuesday at I'm thinking probably 8 o'clock maybe, because 9 o'clock everybody's already at work. So I'll try maybe 7:45, 8 o'clock. So I'll see you guys next Tuesday.